Celtics Stuff Live.
Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on CLNS Radio, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for Boston sports. I'm Justin Poulin. Joining me, John Duke. We are here to talk the week in review as well as a number of other things with March Madness. The tournament is coming up. Brad Stevens, Isaiah Thomas, some commentary right after our last show at the beginning of last week on Monday, so we got to hear some good stuff there. A spirited win against Golden State. We got to show some love. Not some love. We got to show some respect to the Washington Wizards. Those topics and more coming up on Celtic Stuff Live. But John, we're really, really close to your favorite time of the year, and March Madness is upon us. I'm looking forward to getting absolutely toasted in the brackets. I know CLNS Radio's got sort of a host bracketology kind of thing going where we're all going head to head. I guarantee you I come in the bottom 10%. I suck at this.
Well, I mean, look, there's a reason why there's a whole, there are different strategies out there, right? That, this mascot could kill this other mascot, so you pick that team, or you like the state. That's my wife's favorite. I like the state that team's from, which was really effective for her when we had Al Horford and Joakim Noah winning that back-to-back national championships for Florida, making me look like a fool. So, there's a reason why, even if you're a learned basketball man like yourself, you're not going to be able to do so well in these things. But it's fun. It's hella fun. I mean, this is, and I just used hella, and I'm almost 40. Not exactly though. It's a great time of year. It's a great basketball. Not all the teams are great, but it's just fun. You find rooting allegiances, and it's kind of why the NFL has become good, because of fantasy sports and all that. You have a rooting interest in things that you have really no other reason to root for. And then, often what happens is greatness happens. You may have a bad Thursday of games, but then a great Friday. Or, I think last year we had kind of a down first round, but the second round was dynamic. So this is going to be, I think for those who like basketball, yes, it's not the NBA product. You have to, get over that. But once you get past that, it's great basketball. It's kids playing. A lot of them will never touch a ball after these games are played this coming week. And, that's great. That, they're playing for everything that they got and their whole college careers. That's pretty special.
The tournament is often better than NBA basketball for that reason alone. I don't get to watch a lot throughout the year. We've talked about this before. It was kind of disappointing last season because we weren't able to watch a number of the players in the tournament that we were hoping the Celtics would be able to draft. This year, I think we are going to see a number of the players. I've obviously spent a lot of time talking about Jayson Tatum over the last, maybe month. There's some things he's rising up in my draft board. I know really not on NBA DraftNet or DraftExpress.com. He's kind of everybody's positions are holding steady with the guards, Fultz and Ball at the top. Josh Jackson, I think just based on pure athleticism there at Kansas, holding the number 3 spot. But Tatum is a little bit of a riser. He's, I think, entrenched in that 4 slot, at least on Draft Express now. We could talk about that a little bit. I know you absolutely love the Duke Blue Devils for obvious reasons, but they're on fire right now. Finished out their ACC, correct? Am I right about that?
Yes.
This is how bad I am
Correct.
with college basketball.
Keep
so
going.
they get the
You're
win.
Doing great.
I'm rolling because I literally have been watching college basketball this year, but I do love the tournament, but I really don't have a good footing in college ball. But I love watching the players that, especially when the Celtics have a high pick. And right now, there's lots of reasons to watch March Madness, college basketball, even some high school basketball with the pick coming up next year.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. You don't really think about that, but you're absolutely looking at the 2018 mock draft as much as you're looking at the 2017 mock draft. And, it's not going to be before long where, we're talking about DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic and all these other guys who are going to fill our Michael Porter's another one, Wendell Carter, a Duke guy. I mean, these are the names that are going to be in our conversation here a year from now. But we'll put those guys on pause for a second. Let's talk about Jayson Tatum. Duke, this is the first time that any team has won the ACC tournament playing 4 games in a row in 4 days. It's the first time it's ever happened. And so first of all, obviously I'm incredibly biased by the Duke Blue Devils. But let's talk about particularly Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum has taken a team that was really listless. Really, he was really the only of all the freshmen. They have a number of great freshmen: Frank Jackson, Tatum, Harry Giles, who we talked a lot about probably earlier in the year.
Still
Marcus
wearing
Bolden,
the brace too, right?
Still wearing the brace, yeah.
Man, he would have been the pick too if it wasn't the second knee injury. Now it's a gamble, and he's in the middle of that first round for a team who wants to see if they can, push on through. But he would have been the pick this time last year. We were talking about Harry Giles.
He was the top of the board for sure. I mean, he was in the Markelle Fultz position a year ago in this draft, and things happen, and it wasn't, from what I could tell, it wasn't actually an injury so much as a clean out. He had it done, and they had to go back in and kind of clean some things up, and so he's still battling back. But I think he had his best game of the year against Louisville, and a really good game against Carolina as well. So he's kind of rounding into form, and at the right time. I think he'd be best served by coming back and kind of trying to be the star. And next year's team will be another talented Duke team. But from what I've heard, that's not going to happen. So he's done. But Tatum is the guy. Tatum is the guy who puts the team on his back at times. He's the guy who can get to the rack like no other Duke player can. I know there's a lot of talk about Grayson Allen, and he likes to kick and all that. And Luke Kennard was just phenomenal here this year, an All-American type year for him. But Tatum has that game that I think, as Celtics fans and as Paul Pierce fans, we can best appreciate. He doesn't have the stunning athleticism of a Josh Jackson, or even a Jaylen Brown perhaps, but he's got that kind of silky smooth moves, that finds his way to the basket. He can work in the mid-range. He hasn't yet taken that outside to the 3-point, but he's picking that up too. And I think that's something that, as he's kind of getting through the season, he is extending that range a bit further out, and he's rebounding a bit. He's got 7 rebounds a game, often playing at the 4 position. So he's got reach. He's got size. You can absolutely see him in the front court next to Jay Crowder on this team.
He's got the long wingspan. So I think that's the one thing that he's really got going for him. If you look at the way he draws contact, and I think this is an especially unique skill set for him, maybe versus some of the other guys in the draft, but he takes contact and still holds form on his shot. I love the form on his shot because his elbow is right out front every time. He can take contact, and he finishes really high because he has that high release, and he's always got perfect wrist action. That wrist is pointing, or his fingers are pointing to the ground at the end of the shot. It's really mechanically very sound, and I think that range is going to easily extend for him. It's also the way that he finishes. I mean, we talk about criticizing Jaylen Brown, and this, for me, is not an either or. This is totally an and situation. I think these two players could coexist in the future in a rotation, but you look at the way Jaylen Brown has that athleticism, but then and we talked about this, sometimes when he gets to the basket, he doesn't know what he's doing with it. Tatum always knows what he's doing with it. He really has a plan. He's very fluid in the way that he goes to finish, and they have the knock on him. You said he doesn't have the jump out of the gym athleticism. I think he has crazy athleticism. I think the real knock is just the first step that's not there. But to your point, he's so smooth. And not only does he have that high release, but it's a nice quick release, and he's got kind of a natural fade, so he gets even a little bit more space. A lot of times when you see these players who are a little bit longer in college, they get their shot off, then they get to the pros and they're up against the real athletes, and that's when it really is a deterrent. I don't think he's going to have that problem. I think he's going to be ready to score day one.
I think you're probably right. I think he's much more in line in terms of his ability to score and all of that. I think that when people are trying to compare him to a Josh Jackson or trying to compare him to guys like that, though, that's where he probably fails in comparison. But what are we talking about here? I mean, I don't think that to say he's not the freakish athlete doesn't mean he's a bad basketball player. I mean, that we've kind of gotten to that point as kind of NBA fans where we look at it like, well, can he really, can he
Remember
basically
Brandon
go up
Roy?
and,
Remember Brandon Roy,
Yep.
if his knees
Yeah,
had held up, but
Yep.
that was the big knock
Yep.
on him. He didn't have the jump out of, and guess what else? Jamal Murray, last year, huge knock on him. Hey, the guy can ball, he can shoot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is he just doesn't have the athleticism, quote unquote, that you want from a high lottery pick. Remember?
Absolutely.
And I thought he has played well, but I thought he played especially nice against the Celtics in their game against the Nuggets to match up this week.
He did. No, he played very well. To talk about size, I mean, I think just kind of looking at how a player fits. I mean, when you look at those long arms of Tatum, I think you mentioned it. I was just kind of briefly going through the Draft Express measurements history. By the way, a wild new site there on
Dude,
Draft
I
Express.
like it on my
Great job.
phone. I love it on my phone. I haven't
used it on
looked
the
at it
phone
on the
yet.
browser
Okay.
yet. Oh, well, if you like it on the browser, I'm telling you I love it on the phone. So there you go. Two
There we
5
go.
stars from the Celtics.
There you
Live
go.
host.
But I was just looking and say, okay, well, what's his, comparable? And so his standing reach right now, in terms of comparison with power forwards and small forwards, is among the highest. I mean, in terms of he's
killing everybody else in the draft. 6'11" wingspan. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And for someone his size, if you're saying he's a small forward, even if you're saying he's a power forward, kind of that 3-4 spot, I mean, obviously a higher ceiling of a guy, than Jay Crowder gives you. But that 6'11" wingspan really allows you to really defend the rim, perhaps. And Tatum was he had the chase down block, or had the block at one end, and then the huge finish, the other night there against, Notre Dame in the ACC championship. I mean, those are the games, or that's the type of play that, as you said, the athleticism. He has enough athleticism to compete in the NBA. It's much more about what you do with it and how you use that athleticism. And I think, as we saw right here, in Boston, that Paul Pierce is a guy who went in the gym and was a wizard. Was a guy who used every inch to his advantage. And I think Tatum has that same sort of sense of himself. Will he be a Hall of Famer, a guy whose number goes in the rafters? Probably not, but he's not someone I would hesitate to draft. This is not a situation like, as we talked about 10 years ago, without, where if you didn't have Durant, you didn't have Odin, you're really in a bad spot. I don't feel that way this year.
No,
I feel
we
like
could fall to
Tatum,
4. We could fall to 4, and it would be A-okay. I saw you make those comparisons to Paul Pierce on Twitter right after Nate Jones said Jayson Tatum is just a hooper. He is polished. He's extremely polished. And I'll end the discussion on this, and we'll get back to the Celtics and their prior week, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about Jayson Tatum after he gets a chance to perform here in March Madness in the tournament, and also Josh Jackson. But he's really polished for a 19-year-old, and he's just about 19 flat, too. He's one of the younger players in the draft still, and yet I love the way he moves the ball. I know Josh Jackson has higher assists and is also pretty court aware for, a wing / power stretch 4. But I think Tatum plays within the offense very well, and yet he continues to put up 20 points. But he really doesn't disrupt anybody else's, job or role in the offense. I think that's really big. When you're on a team, you kind of expect the Duke players, and we've talked about this before. I'm never really all that high on the Duke players, and part of it is because great coach, great system. So, a lot of times that system makes players look better than they'll end up being in the NBA. But I think Tatum is a hard worker, and again, that was one of the things that drew me to Jaylen Brown as well. I want workers. I know Brad wants workers, Ainge wants workers, and I think Tatum is a little scrappy too, and that's really what, when you're looking for somebody who's going to translate to the NBA, I think that's extremely important. And here's one guy that I just think maybe one of, coming out of Duke, because of some of the measurables, even though it's not first step, but that length and the fundamentals that he has, that polish, I actually have really high hopes for him in the NBA. So real quick, we got to tell you guys about the boatload of money you can make this week betting at mybookie.ag. If you haven't checked them out, this is the perfect time with March Madness getting underway into the action. It's here. Lay down some money and score big on college hoops. Are you sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? Come join MyBookie today. You win, they pay. It's fast and without any hassles. You're wasting your time betting anywhere else. They even have in-game live betting, so you can place a bet right after tip-off. How about that? Join now, and MyBookie will match your first deposit with a 50% bonus. That's right. If you join with $100, you'll get an extra $50 bankroll to play with by using our Celtics Stuff Live promo code CS50 to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie AG today or call 844-900-BETS-PLAY. Win and get paid. So, John, we're going to talk more March Madness as the weeks go forward here and roll on. So let's table that a little bit. We're going to see a lot of the guys this year playing in the tournament, or at least hopefully. We don't see too many crazy upsets in the first round, but we'll get into the meat of that on next week's show. Let's look back at the week that just happened, because I think I said they would go 2-2 and that they were going to go on a 3-game skid, which didn't happen. They wind up getting an awesome win against the Warriors in the wee hours of a Wednesday night in the middle of the week. But then they drop an absolute stink bomb to Denver. And then yesterday, Sunday afternoon game, nationally televised on ABC, they take one against Chicago, which really just laid a major goose egg. I'm not even sure I can say that the Celtics played awesome in that game, but Chicago played so poorly that Boston, I think, got loose enough in front of the hometown crowd that they were happy to be back too, I'm sure, after that road trip and the way that went, that, you know, they come away with the win, pretty easy win. Guys like Marcus Smart just raining threes. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. But that Phoenix loss was a bomb. They struggled against the Clippers, but the Denver one is the one that hurts, and they've lost both games against Denver this year.
Oh, both games have been terrible games. Really bad performances, dispirited effort. Different reasons for those games. I mean, again, that was a situation where I think Emmanuel Mudiay shot, probably had his career high in 3-pointers made. At this point, he's
sort of like the first matchup against the Bulls at the very beginning of the season, no doubt.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was only like a few days later. So it seems like there was, those things are related, but maybe I'm wrong. But no, I mean, there's absolutely just a dispirited effort because, and it isn't, I mean, I suppose we should all probably have expected after you play the Warriors and play that well that sort of thing's going to happen. But I guess in adding that loss to Denver to the terrible effort or terrible closeout of the game against Phoenix, and then a game that they should have won in LA. I don't want to say the Golden State win gets overshadowed, but because Golden State had played so poorly, because they were on the road, it was their first game back at home, it does get pushed under the rug when, you have really 3 horrendous performances in a week, and a lot of people are standing around looking around at each other saying, we got to do something. And I think the effort on Sunday against the Bulls is probably a reflection of that as much as anything. They knew they had to actually stand up and do something instead of just kind of standing by and, having one of those lackluster performances on a Sunday afternoon you can end up seeing so often.
Well, Isaiah very vocal this week, and obviously leading into the Bulls game, a little upset that the Wizards had leapfrogged the Celtics in the standings, and truly unnecessarily. They never should have slid like this. Not Phoenix, and not really this week's game. I think 2-2 was a reasonable expectation for this past week, especially wrapping up the road trips, and I think you were a little concerned about that Bulls game coming home jet lagged after a long trip, and understandably so. So 2-2, totally reasonable, but it was the week prior coming in. They get this both Wednesdays, a win against Cleveland and a win against the Warriors, but preceded by, some difficult games. So it's almost like they were motivated to come out and only play the big ticket items on their schedule over the last 2 weeks. And it does feel that way. They lost the game against Atlanta. They lost the game against the Clippers. Both games on the Monday leading up to the big, it's almost like they were already looking ahead to Wednesday. Good thing they got the wins on those Wednesdays, because it would be way uglier if not. But speaking of Isaiah being vocal during that frustration, I don't think we had a chance to talk about this on last week's show, because I don't think it really came out until after we recorded. But Isaiah, really kind of throwing the coach under the bus with some rotation comments, and we shouldn't be trying to figure this out at this point in the year. I think maybe Isaiah, or it was after the Clippers game, that's right. But Brad said that they're not as good as their record. So it was interesting. It never got out of hand, but you got to think that there were some conversations behind closed doors.
Yeah, and that, I think there was about a 24-hour period, or maybe not even that, after the comments made by Isaiah, say, look, that's not the time to experiment with lineups. And there's some truth on both sides. Let's be honest. And this is not a hot take. This is a 7-day-old take nearly at this point. So it's not even lukewarm at this point. But look, I mean, they're both right. The Celtics were without Jerebko and Horford. Okay, so you got to play.
And Bradley on a minutes restriction. Sorry to cut you off, but Bradley just got his minutes restriction lifted.
I mean, it's a lot to ask of Brad to run any sort of regular rotation out there. Having said that, was that the time to try Jay at center? Probably not. So I can see both guys' point, and I'm sure they talked it up. It was fine. They worked it out. Apparently right after he made the comments to the press, he kind of cooled off a sec, talked to Brad, which, and I think Brad is fine with that. He took care of it in-house. I think that we kind of are a little bit, we do kind of jump. Someone says something mildly, I don't want to say irritating, but mildly kind of, kind of gets the juices flowing a bit.
Mildly out of line in a moment of frustration. It is a little out of line, but it's not necessarily, you can understand it.
I can understand where he's coming from, and I think it's okay. So, and that's why I say, look, it happens. Should he have, questioned his rotations when all that's going on? No. Should he have maybe caught the ball that Jay threw to him? Yes. These are all a series of factors that kind of roll in together.
Dude, that was so lazy. That was so lazy.
It was. I mean, I'm more bothered by it now than I was after we did the show.
Yeah, me too.
After that, because it's like coupled. It's the two things coupled, because they really should have won that Clipper game. And I think that those pieces, and then you add to that the dispirited effort against, the Nuggets. And it's like, come on, guys, we're in the middle of a really a playoff race. We're in the middle of, an outside shot of getting the number one seed in the East. And we're putting these efforts together. Yes, people are hurt. Yes, we have minutes restrictions, but man, we've got to nut up here and do something. And against Golden State, they did that. And kudos,
Phoenix
that's great.
And Nuggets though was absolutely unacceptable.
Totally.
And yes, they should have won the Clippers game, but that was a game I thought they would lose. I mean, again, they're out on that West Coast trip, and it's a second night of a back-to-back. Winnable? Absolutely. But, understandable loss? Certainly. That team is starting to get ready for their postseason run. Blake, you can just see why he would rip us apart, and he did. And that's going to happen most times we play the Clippers. Blake is going to have a good game. Got kind of lucky the last time that when they were in Boston for Paul Pierce's farewell. Obviously CP3 not healthy for that game, but they're always going to be a tough opponent. Always. And especially on the road on the West Coast swing. But Phoenix, the Nuggets, and like Jokic, the Joker, his first game back, he looked like death on wheels, man. He didn't even look like he was ready to play the game. His eyes were all sunken in, hadn't played ball, and then next thing you know, he's going nuts. Now, I will tell you this. I watched the Phoenix game and the Nuggets game on League Pass, and sometimes with League Pass you can't listen to Mike and Tommy. For some reason it forces you to listen to the away broadcast, or the home broadcast in this case, because they were away.
I blame the referees for that, by the way.
Well, but
they're trying to silence Tommy.
Oh
Fake
yeah,
news.
no doubt.
Yeah.
Let's reduce the, I blame a lot of the League Pass is whack. But I will say this. This is a interesting sort of side note. We don't have to go down the road, but both of the announcers for the Nuggets and the Suns did not pass up an opportunity to make mention of Marcus Smart's sort of past. And yes, they say he overcome adversity, but the biggest highlighted note, that time he went into the stands and got in a fight with a fan. That is following him around the league right now, which I find so bizarre, because I think he's been far enough removed that we don't have to treat him like Ron Artest anymore.
Honestly, like, come on. I mean, that was, I mean, there are two sides to that story, and neither of them are pretty. And to sit there and suggest that only look at that from one avenue is really, we talk about fake news. I mean, that's really a bad effort on their part. But, a lot of these local broadcasters, I would not put it past them to have that kind of recall of events. I mean,
it wasn't necessarily sensationalistic, and we're going to take our mid-show break here in a second, but it wasn't necessarily sensationalistic, but I just felt like it's probably a footnote that could be dropped off at this point, just because it didn't even happen in the NBA. The guy's been in the league for 3 years, and other than maybe some criticism around flopping, he's an aggressive player, but it's not like he's throwing punches. It's not like he looks to be physically out of control or taunting. Like, none of those things are issues with Marcus Smart. So for me, it's sort of like, does it really need to be brought up? Like, and again, if it was just a Phoenix game, I wouldn't even say anything. But it's almost like it's on a sheet that Comcast wheels around for the home broadcasters, and they pull it up, and that's what the other team's fans want to hear. They want a reason to kind of get a little sparked up against the team that they're playing against, and I'm sure it punctuated the wins because the Celtics dropped it hard. All right. I want to talk about Jokic and Nurkic when we come back, but first I have to tell everybody about Blue Apron and their mission to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. Blue Apron knows that when you cook with incredible ingredients, you make incredible meals, and they set the highest quality standards for their community or artisanal suppliers, family-run farms, fisheries, and ranchers. For less than $10 a meal, Blue Apron delivers the seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. And I'll tell you what, John, we cooked falafel pitas this week. My wife thought there was no way she was going to like it, and I actually pick out the recipes, so I'm going all sneak on the wife. But she loved the falafel pitas. They were amazing. So I can tell you're going to try things that you would never think to try by getting your subscription to Blue Apron. You can customize your recipes each week. Some of the upcoming meals: cashew chicken stir fry with tango mandarins and jasmine rice, roasted pork with apple walnut and farro salad, crispy barramundi with quinoa and roasted carrot salad, udon noodle soup with miso and soft boiled eggs. So go to blueapron.com, check out this week's menu, and because you're a loyal listener of Celtics Stuff Live, you'll get your first 3 meals for free with free shipping. It doesn't get much better than that. Go to blueapron.com/Celtics. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And another new sponsor, SeatGeek. As the Celtics playoff push heats up, SeatGeek is the smartest and easiest way to get tickets to every game. I love their app. It is a seamless mobile experience. You can buy tickets. We're not just talking sports. It's music, it's entertainment, it's comedy, whatever's coming up in your area. If you give them location services, they'll tell you what's popular in your area. They'll tell you sports. It's a great app. It's very easy to navigate, and you're going to find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing like being in the stadium for the biggest play of the year, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for great value. They save you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites. They compare prices and find you amazing deals. So you're going to get bang for your buck, and they're going to grade every ticket based on value so that you can help immediately identify the best seats to fit your budget. And every purchase, like I mentioned, fully guaranteed. So shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. It doesn't end with sports, as I said. But best of all, our listeners will get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. So to get your $20 rebate on tickets, download the SeatGeek app. Go to the settings tab, add a promo code, and enter CSL 2017. What SeatGeek's going to do is they're going to send you $20 after you made your first ticket purchase. So download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code CSL 2017 today. So John, right before the break, we were talking about Jokic and how the Joker came back with deep set eyes and really ran it up against the Celtics. They had two players that couldn't coexist, Jokic and Nurkic, so they spin Nurkic off to Portland. They grab, or they give up a first round pick, and they get Mason Plumlee, who I guess fits a little bit better. Interesting to give up on two young players that way and bring in, I guess, a veteran. But it seems like Portland really got Nurkic for a steal, and I think he's played 3 games. Maybe he's played a fourth, and I'm missing one from this weekend. But the 3 games he's played extremely well with an opportunity. He's a shooter. He can score. He can rebound, and he can dime. And I'm just wondering, do you think we missed an opportunity to grab a player like that? Because clearly we could use that at the center position. And I love what Kelly Olynyk, he's having another hot streak right now, and his ability to finish around the rim is about as strong as it's been since his time joining the Celtics coming out of the draft. But no offense to Kelly, I still think, boy, would it be nice to get somebody like Nurkic in to play center. Larry H. Russell was hugely high on Jokic and Nurkic. I did an interview with him Saturday or for the Sunday show. The first game against Denver was Sunday evening, and he was just talking about how the Celtics had to trade for one of those two guys. I know it's come up on our show a couple of times, maybe a little more light touch. But do you think we missed an opportunity? Because really, Nurkic looked like he could have been had for relatively little.
He did. But I think where they are right now, it's a tough fit to bring him in. I mean, you bring him in, you're going to have to pay him soon. And every player that you add, unless they come off the books this summer, you're going to be left with a situation where you're going to have to move them again to get the cap space you need to sign somebody. So, and if you're in a situation where let's say Gordon Hayward said, yeah, I'll come there and I'll sign the max. And then, Mike Zarin's got to go find deals, and Danny's got to find deals, and Austin Ainge's got to go find deals to clear the cap space. You never get 100 cents on the dollar. So for a team that's hoarded all these chips for all these places, whatever would have cost to get Nurkic, you would have gotten 75 cents back to try to get rid of him, to clear his space, potentially. So
what about Terry
Rozier
to pick, though? I know they love Terry. He's had some explosive drives to the rim over the last week, but what about Rozier and one of those low first-round future picks? I mean, that would have cleared space because Rozier's on the books next year anyway for not much different than Nurkic's salary. That's kind of where I was looking at it, was that sort of similar balance play that you were looking at in maybe trading for help me out. The Philadelphia 76 Noel. Right. Yeah. Similar kind of play, except I think Nurkic has got another year on his deal, whereas we would have been in a situation where we might have lost Noel if we didn't take him in. And even if we did take him back and re-sign him, then you lose the cap space that you desperately need for a max free agent.
Right. So next year, Nurkic, next summer, not this coming summer, but next summer, after that, he'd be a restricted free agent. So he's extension eligible this summer, which is probably unlikely that he's going to get an extension. So you're really looking at somebody that's still going to be on their rookie deal next year. But you have control of him. You have control, I should say, of Rozier for one additional year than you do for Nurkic. Now that's not the only reason to do the deal, but you have to give up assets to get a guy like Nurkic. So are you going to give up even one chip, two chips that you would need to get the second player, the third player, the other star players that you're going to need to build around the next iteration? I mean, does it make sense at all, whether it's PJ Brown, Serge Ibaka, or Nurkic?
I think it definitely does, because Nurkic would get a chance to really showcase, and then maybe he is, like you said, you could still wind up flipping him. If you make the trade now at the deadline, you've got the ability to trade him anytime in the offseason and next year before he becomes a restricted free agent. Said receiving team still has the opportunity to match on any deal the following year. So it's not, it could be an expiring deal, but it doesn't have to be. But you take a center like that, put him on the Celtics team, he's going to get an opportunity to play, probably a lot of opportunity to play, whereas Terry Rozier is not getting much of an opportunity to increase his value in the eyes of other GMs. I guess that would be my only point there.
Well, I think that's true in some cases. I think in another case, Terry Rozier has actually played quite a bit, I think, over the last week. A lot more than I would have anticipated, given Bradley's return and return to full health and removal from any sort of minutes restriction. So I think that Rozier is beginning to get a bit of run and beginning to kind of bit of footing for himself, thankfully. But Nurkic, then we got to talk about fit. So what sort of fit does he have here? Is he someone you can put next to, Al Horford? Is he going to protect the rim well enough that, to be that guy that you're looking for? I just, in terms of fit, I'm not sure he's the right guy here, long term or short term. And so if you're going to spend the assets, I mean, that's basically what Rozier and a pick is basically what, Toronto had to give up, for, Serge Ibaka, who is a much more accomplished player, who's done a lot more. And I would, you can argue in terms of being at different ends of their career, but he would certainly be a better help for where this team is right now. I think that the issue is like, perhaps you could have done that, and I wouldn't have been upset about it in any way, but I think that their focus is so much on this summer and about the next edition of the Celtics team in terms of roster building, that anything that really distracts from that is a problem that they're going to have to correct. They have everything lined up for this summer, and Nurkic would have been a type of player, or I should say contract, that could have created yet another issue that they're going to have to resolve before signing a max free agent and whatever the next move would be.
All right, well, we'll put that one to rest. That'll be enough negativity from the loss to the Nuggets from this past week. Let's talk about the good things from last week. And that Golden State Warriors game, especially the fourth quarter and the waning minutes, the way that this Celtics team on the road just absolutely closed that game out was impressive. I loved the defense by Kelly Olynyk and Avery Bradley on Steph Curry. The way that they did those doubles up in the corner, that was just beautiful magic. They really disrupted the offense when they needed to the most. I will say this about Golden State though, curious substitution patterns in the fourth quarter. It didn't seem like they really got their players out there early enough in the fourth to get the momentum going to take that game away. Felt like the Celtics had their foot down on the pedal long before Steve Kerr subbed in Curry, and I can't remember if Klay Thompson was out there or not, but it was sort of curious. Now, of course, the Celtics are the only team in the league to be able to take the Golden State Warriors on their own home court 2 years in a row. So that's pretty impressive work. However, they also, Golden State did not have Durant in either of those matchups either.
Right. And that that makes a big impact, right? I mean, the apple of our eye from this summer is not part of the equation. I mean,
You mean the
that
rotten
colors
apple
things.
of our eye.
Oh, here we go. I'm
We
having July 4th
don't have
flashbacks.
to go now, but it's just
July 4th flashbacks. They're coming back.
Dude,
right
it ruined my whole holiday weekend. And if you said Tom Brady, never mind, I'm not going down this road again.
now. Everyone wants to hear you melt down right now.
They do love the pool and meltdown. There's no doubt. Justin's getting angry.
Oh, here we go again. Hit the skip button. No.
All right. Anyway, the rotten apple of our eye from July 4th weekend. Take it from there.
Well, no, I just, I mean, it makes a big impact. But let's look at that team right now. I mean, that team is the one that won 73, won 100 billion games last year and was one Draymond Green errant body part thrown up towards somebody away from being NBA two-time defending NBA champions at this point, and potentially not having Kevin Durant. So the idea that somehow, that doesn't count is just crazy. I mean, that team was good before Durant joined them. There's no reason they should be taking 18 steps back as a team just because he's out. I think it's wide open in the West right now. I really do.
Spurs are knocking, man. Spurs are knocking on the door.
I'm worried about Aldridge, though. I mean, having him out in an arrhythmia, you never really know. At that age, big men and hearts or something as, we all know.
Jeff Green.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something you never know with that. I mean, an arrhythmia is a little bit different, but still, I mean, hearts and big men I worry about.
Yeah, it's
having said that,
nerve-wracking.
though, yeah, I think it opens the door for a team like Houston, and I think I think the door is open for Boston. I think the door is open for Washington.
Do you think Houston can close the gap though? That's maybe it opens in the postseason, but they're 7 games back and they've got somewhere around 15 to 16 games. I mean, they're not going to be able to take it in the standings, but they might be able to make noise in the postseason.
I mean, they're good. I mean, they're a good team. I would like to see that Houston team get hot and maybe try to, extend some things right now. Basically, at the point where we're recording this, we don't have the results of the Cleveland, Houston game that's going on right now. It's still close, so we won't try to let the cat out of the bag on that one. But, and some of you will be saying, hey, but so-and-so won. Well, we're not going to get into that right now, but it's a good team, and Houston is a team where they're so strong with the 3 ball. They could, if they get hot, they could be a team that could just run through that Western Conference. I mean, we certainly saw with D'Antoni's Suns teams, they had a bit of bad luck, but they were never able to get past the Spurs. But maybe the luck will turn their way this year. I would just love to see a chance where the Celtics, could have a similar kind of, run of luck here. And maybe they could do some damage in the playoffs. The East is similarly wide open, and while we're a bit probably down.
Wait, hold on. Before we transition, I'll just make one comment. It would be awesome to see Houston Golden State in the Western Conference Finals.
I think that's a very real possibility. It means Houston's got to get past San Antonio, likely, assuming everything holds to where it is right now. But
the pace of play in that game, and you just know Harden is bullseye. Like, he will be insane in that series.
I would think so. I mean, there's just no way in which this team, there's no way in which those teams wouldn't be just the most stunning basketball, offensive basketball. Probably Jim O'Brien, Dick Carter, Jeff Van Gundy might be cringing, but those
not their brand of ball.
Right?
No, not at all. All right, so the Eastern Conference is wide open. But the Wizards, man, I mean, I know we talked a little bit about it in the first segment about how I think Jay King had a nice article on Jay Crowder talking to Isaiah and how Isaiah was upset about Washington leapfrogging the standings, and everybody says we have to focus on ourselves and we don't look at the standings, but clearly they do, and Isaiah just being honest about it. So Jay trying to talk him off the ledge a little bit. Don't worry, they do have a great schedule. There's no doubt. I think, they travel 1/4 the distance that the average NBA team will for the rest of the year, and they're almost exclusively at home, and every road game is against an Eastern. I think they play 10 out of the last 15 at home, and the other 5 are all within the Eastern Conference and very, very close by. So that's great news for the Celtics. However, they also, and I think the teams they're playing against are all collectively pretty well below 500 type of clubs. But you know what? Look at Phoenix. Look at Denver. The Celtics have a way of lowering their standard of play to the opponents. I don't want to take it for granted, but it certainly bodes well. They do play nicely at home, and that crowd gives them the lift. So that's a positive thing. But the Wizards, man, they might have a tougher schedule, but they seem to want it pretty bad right now.
They do. I'm going to say though, like Golden State, they're a bit of a house of cards. That wasn't trying to go with a bit of a DC pun there, but it does work, doesn't it?
That was good. That was Netflixing. Good for you. Frank
Underwood, ladies and gentlemen. I love that.
Yeah. I love the cufflinks. I mean, if we're gonna throw out Frank Underwood, we gotta talk about we gotta just mention the cufflinks. It was fantastic.
Hold on. See if you can hear this. There we go. That was me. He does the thing. He knocks his ring on the table. Yeah, I love that. Yep. Anyway, So anyway, we're talking about the Wizards. They do want it, but here's the problem with the Wizards. They are entirely reliant on a 5-man rotation. Now they are in marked contrast to the Celtics, right? I mean, they've got Wall, they got Beal. I mean, 2 dynamite scorers, dynamite players. Otto Porter's going to make a whole lot of money somewhere else this summer. Bojan Bogdanovic has been, on at times 30 points, throwing that in, and we all know that Gortat, going back to the 2009 battles with the Magic, is a formidable center. Great players, right? But after that, who are we talking about? We're talking about Kelly Oubre. Is that Markieff Morris gonna really, put a fear of God in you? No. I mean, the Celtics are a deeper team. They've got, from 1 to 10. Now we see over and over in the playoffs though, that starting teams can win, but let's go back and let's look at Bradley Beal's injury history. Let's look at John Wall's injury history. Let's look at, I just think that there's a bit of a house of cards effect there where somebody's going to push the proverbial Bradley Beal in front of the subway car, and there's going to be someone that gets hurt. Sorry for the spoiler alert 3 years later, but I think that's a team where somebody goes down, something goes wrong, and they fall out of it. They've got everything humming along perfectly, and they've had a really strong bad luck. So maybe this is the time they get it together, but they put so much emphasis on that starting unit that really the rest of their team kind of struggles. I think that this matchup a week from today, Monday, against the Wizards is really going to say quite a bit about the Celtics' ability not just to stand up with the Wizards, but to maybe push back in the entire Eastern Conference race to say, no, we're in this and we mean it.
Well, they got to stay healthy to close out the year, which they didn't do last season. They have to make noise in getting out of the first round and being extremely competitive in the second round, if not going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Those are really on the must-do list for this season. And it has been nice because they've sort of shed these injuries, knock on wood with Frank Underwood's ring, and pray that it stays that way. But they also have to develop the killer instinct that they're going to need in the postseason. It's a whole different ball of wax when the opposing coach gets a chance to game plan. That could be very positive for Brad. It could be very negative for Isaiah Thomas. I don't know what we're going to get in the postseason. Your point is well taken. They need that second seed. They need to hold that
home
second seed. And even if they wind up playing Washington, that would be fantastic if that was their matchup. I mean, the way that bad blood between the two teams has evolved over this season, what a great matchup in the second round of the postseason this year. For the chance to play the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is likely how that will all shake out. I mean, certainly the Celtics could take Cleveland in the standings. It's a possibility, but in all likelihood, Cleveland goes 1 and Boston, Washington are 2 and 3. So to your point, it would be excellent if the Celtics could hold on to that 2 spot, set the tone with Washington, and make Washington work really hard with a harder schedule down the stretch to be able to stay and try to challenge the Celtics, and then we see them in the second round. That would be ideal. It would be good for the NBA. It'd be good for our entertainment value. And it will definitely, I think, that game, like you said, a week from today, will 100% set the tone for, what we might expect in the postseason. It's going to be scrappy. It's going to get ugly. And it's going to be a fun one. In the meantime, though, when you look at the games on the docket, I think we said there's 5 games that are going to be on the road before the Celtics close out the season. So 10 at home, 5 on the road, and 2 of them are this week, and they're against the lowly Nets and the 76ers. And I know we're not talking about next Monday's game when we do our predictions and whatnot, but there is that letdown ability. I almost wonder if they won't be ready for that game a little bit. I could see them getting caught with a sucker punch.
Well, I don't think so. I think at once
you think they're too fired up.
I think they're going to be loaded for bear. I think Isaiah has got that circled on his calendar already. And I'd also add this. So, the Washington Wizards have been a tremendous home team. They're 26-9. The Celtics are 22-9. So the Celtics have had 4 less opportunities to match that home record. But let's talk about the road records right now. The Celtics are 20-16 on the road. The Wizards are 15-15 on the road. Okay. Now let me just read to you real quickly here. This is from March 25th. All right. They play the Cavs, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Jazz, and the Warriors. Okay. So they play 5 games right there in the row at the end of the month. Those are all on the road. So I think
they haven't had their West Coast swing, and they could suffer some similar fate that we just saw the Celtics. So that gap gets closed, but it may not be a truthful gap because there's some reconciliation to be done here.
Absolutely. I mean, you win that game against the Wizards at home. If you're the Celtics, you win that game at home. You tie up the season series. And then they've got to go off
and packing out west.
Yep. Finish the month on the road while you're sitting at home, and you're going to be playing teams like the Suns, Heat, Bucks, who are paddling for a playoff spot, the Magic, the Knicks. So that that favors Boston pretty heavily, and that really hurts the Wizards pretty heavily. So
if Boston does what they're supposed to do, they actually do have a shot at toppling Cleveland or making it really close.
Yeah.
And they beat Cleveland twice, so the tiebreaker is right there. I mean, it's in play. There's no doubt. It's not like Cleveland just owns the tiebreaker and, because they've kicked the crap out of the Celtics all year. Celtics got 2 wins against Cleveland. That's a really good sign for them.
No. They only got 1. They lost 2.
Oh, I thought they won 1.
No.
I mean, I thought they won the second one earlier. But no, they've got 1 more April 5th. And that one's at home. So if they can take that one, then the tiebreaker, it'll get them a game in the standings, and it'll even them up in the season series on the tiebreaker. That's what it is.
If you take Brooklyn, if you take the Bucks out of it, you've got Atlanta and Cleveland, and I'm going to take the Heat out of it too. I mean, other than the Wizards, the Cleveland is the only really team, playoff team. I want
Toronto right now.
Well, we're not playing Toronto. That's what I'm saying.
Down the stretch of the season.
You got 20 games left, and you've only got a handful of those, a really small handful against elite teams. You've gotten all that out of your schedule. A lot of it is at home. I mean, I just think the Celtics are really primed here. but they have to take advantage of it. And they didn't take advantage of it in Phoenix. They didn't take advantage of it when they had a good lead against the Clippers, and they didn't take advantage of it in Denver. This is where they have to show some
resiliency.
Ability. Well, resiliency and poise of situation. They're a young team still. I mean, this is, while Isaiah is on one end, Horford is certainly an older player, they still are largely a roster of younger players. They need to build that poise and need to have that poise to compete through this last stretch. Because if they do, they'll be a solid 2, and with a chance to move upward if things don't break Cleveland's way. I really like where we are. I think we're in a really good position in terms of the schedule. But
I think it favors staying
on the
healthy,
court, not on paper.
Yeah, and I think it favors staying healthy just by being at home, regular routine, sleep in your own bed, with the training staff, in your training facilities. Like, those things I think matter, and the toll, I don't even know where that came from. The toll of travel is, I think, where a lot of the injuries come from. You get a little worn down, you're on the plane. I know they're not flying coach anymore these days. That obviously would wear and tear on an NBA body, but I think that this bodes well for them staying healthy too, which is a major fingers crossed, and again, just, whatever mojo to send it the right way. But you're right, they're positioned well. I think it's a throwaway kind of prediction week, but let's make our predictions for this week. And if there's any time, maybe we talk a little bit about Dwayne Wade and, some of the comments that he made at the end of the game yesterday. We got about 5 minutes, but I'm looking at it. I'm going to look at, I hate that Timberwolves game. The same way I hate playing the Pelicans. It's just nerve-wracking. So they get 2 days off, which is also nerve-wracking for me. They get kind of a win that makes them maybe look better than they were in the matchup against Chicago on Sunday. Then they go 2 days off, and then they play the dreaded front court awesome-mania that, is either Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Davis, right? So I'm gonna.
Wait, what? Wait. No. Wait, what are you talking about?
Timberwolves.
Timberwolves
Wednesday.
Karl Anthony Towns. No Anthony Davis.
I said, but no, the two of them give the Celtics fits. So I dread Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Davis equally against the Celtics. So I definitely said Cat, no doubt.
You did. I thought you were saying that they were both playing for the Timberwolves. Like, holy Cat, whoa.
No, but that would be something. Okay. Wouldn't that be something?
I've had a long weekend, but anyway, sorry, go ahead.
All I'm saying is I fear both of them. Bad teams, great players on bad teams, and they've bit us in the ass, and they could again. So I'm looking at that game, and so much of me doesn't want to give them a 3-0 week because I've given them 2-2 weeks. But I'm finally going to drink Kool-Aid on a prediction for this week. It's been a long time. I'm going to go 3-0. I feel like the Nets and the 76ers next Sunday, foregone conclusion wins, especially with Embiid out with the 76ers, and the Nets they'll play the Celtics tough, but they're the Nets. So the only game that even scares me at all is Thibodeau's T-Wolves, but I'm going to go 3-0 this week. What's your take?
I am too. I think the Nets are... No, a home game after, with some days off. I mean, there's some concern of it, but I really think that they're locked in right now. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy because how can you say that after you watch the week you just had? But I really feel like there's a focus right now. They've got to get things right so that when they're playing the Wizards there Monday the 20th, a week from today, everyone's at all battle stations and ready to attack. And unfortunately, playing the Wolves, Nets, and Sixers doesn't exactly give you the best test that you need. But I really do think that they're gonna really put the hammer to all three teams. Actually,
it's a weak week. There's no doubt.
It really is, and That's okay. Hey, sometimes you need that to kind of gel a little bit. They've had a lot of ups and downs, and luckily the road trip after the Timberwolves game is, it's New York and Philly, which is, basically that's a weekend for
It's
you.
not a
basically.
road trip at all. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a bus
that's like
trip.
coming up here. Yeah.
No doubt.
So, it's not bad. And I wish there was a day in between going to Philly and coming back home and to play a Monday night game. But it's a day game. It's a 1:00 game on Sunday. So I think 3-0. If they can't go 3-0 this week, we got some real problems to talk about. I feel more about that than I did, on the West Coast. So.
Oh no. Oh, that was the ultimate Jakes right there. All right. Again, let's just stay healthy and do your job. Just do your job.
That's
all
right.
right, so listen, real quick, we'll wrap on this. The Celtics take down the Bulls in really an ugly one for the Bulls. What did they made one shot out of their first 19, I think it was. So they shot 5%, only had 9 points in the first quarter. Dwayne Wade, a -37 with a couple of comments about whether or not you'd have to go around the room person by person to see if all the players were really putting in their best effort to make the postseason. And another comment, and maybe I'm taking this a little out of context because I'm not sure it sounds worse giving you the clip than I think it really was when he gave the quote. But when asked about, their sort of some of those struggles and what they've seen this season and the young players specifically and their effort, he said, I wish you guys could ask upper management that question. I'm getting kind of sick of answering it. And I respect that. Sort of similar, we're going to give Isaiah a pass for speaking out of frustration, but I think what one of the other comments was the Celtics have had a couple of like little bumpy skids, but the Bulls have been dealing with what we would consider to be a bad week. Really has been their bad year.
First of all, because there's a lot there, but let's start with this one. Hey, Dwayne, Wayne. Okay, Dwayne, buddy. First time, long time. Listen, here's the thought. Don't go in the plus minus column minus 37 before you start running your mouth. There's one thing. Two, I think he's right about the second part, which is this team is rudderless. It's utterly a complete joke. And that does start up on high. I mean, should they have signed him? No. But that's their mistake, not his. Should they have signed Rondo? Hell no. You're supposed to you brought this head coach in to try to do the Brad Stevens 2.0, pace and space and spraying things out, and they've done the exact opposite. So they've basically
Cameron Payne is their 3-point shooter.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, that's a joke, really. So I think that it's certainly all fine and good that he's he didn't play well today. There's a funny, not a Vine, but I guess a GIF out there right now where he's just basically fixing his socks while Avery Bradley just cuts backdoor really quickly. Didn't even notice that he had cut before him until the layup was in. I mean, it was terrible. But I think Dwayne's right. This does rest on management. This does rest on ownership. And look, nobody knows what the hell the Chicago Bulls are doing, which goes back to my larger point, which is we've been hearing for years and years and years, NBA teams shouldn't be in the middle. And yet there's this large class of the NBA media elite who keeps saying, well, I wouldn't trade Jimmy Butler if I was the Bulls. Well, what are they going to do? I mean, what assets do they have? What do they have to leverage to get other pieces in to build around him? Larry doesn't have it around Paul George. Jimmy doesn't have it in Chicago, so Garpax isn't going to be able to get anything around him. I mean, I just don't understand what these teams are thinking. They have reached a brick wall. There is no future for them outside of that. You roll it up and you try to build something new a different way, and that may be missing the playoffs. But let's go back to 2013. Celtics were in the playoffs. They lose to the Knicks. The Celtics sell off their assets. They have a terrible year. Marcus Smart is their draft. They bring in Kelly Olynyk. They sell off their assets over the course of the year. They get the 6th pick in the draft. Disappointing, yes, right? But they have assets coming. But by the time 2014 happens, they make the pick. They've got Smart. They've got James Young, who really did nothing for the team that entire year. And through selling off other assets, they get in the playoffs. So they had 1 year out of the playoffs. They're back at it, and they have a future now. And what do the Bulls have? The Bulls have nothing.
The Bulls have nobody offering them 3 picks for Jimmy Butler. It is different.
But the Celtics have given them a good offer for Jimmy Butler.
Well, we don't know that. We know it's decent, but we don't know what it is.
We know they've got a hell of a lot more future by whatever Danny's offering them than sticking with Jimmy Butler with a whole bunch of guys who aren't going to be good enough when they need to be to help Jimmy Butler, or Jimmy Butler's not going to be good enough by the time those guys are ready to play. They're stuck. They got to do something different.
No, you're right. They're gonna be stuck in mediocrity. That's where the process came from. Some clubs are doing the process faster and better than others, but at the end we'll face 2 teams that suck at process right now anyway, but we'll see. The 76ers might come around. They're definitely interesting to watch. And we didn't talk about Saric and his Rookie of the Year campaign or anything on the show, but that's definitely becoming a Philadelphia narrative these days. Obviously I live down here in Pennsylvania. And one other little note, Isaiah Thomas became just the 3rd Celtic to make 200 threes in a season on Sunday. That one coming from Sean Grandy. I think you know who's ahead of him, Antoine Walker, Paul Pierce, and then Isaiah Thomas, 2017. It's been about 15 years since there were 200 threes, but I wouldn't be surprised if next season we've got 2 players on the Celtics that make 200 threes in the same season. Antoine and Paul did it in 2002. Could certainly happen again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the way the game has gone, I would suspect that if we had somebody who's going to not only play a lot of minutes too, and that's one thing is that while we're putting up things at a good rate, the number of minutes that Bradley obviously is reduced due to injury. Smart has, his minutes aren't exactly where they need to be be putting up those types of shots. Crowder, same thing. A lot of injuries this year. You got to think somebody's going to crack that 200 mark next year.
Yeah, and Jaylen Brown, I think, shooting like 50% from 3 lately, actually knocking down his catch and shoot threes. So we'll see how that lasts. I think he played a little bit better in the starting role than he has coming off the bench. There's a little bit of an adjustment there. Totally crazy move on Sunday with that little behind the back wraparound, and crazy finish. I wouldn't advise that again with Terry Rozier completely wide open on the wing, but gotta love my man's entertainment value. He's definitely something. So that's going to do it for this week's show. We had fun.
That was your weekly Jaylen Brown moment.
I know, I'm not going to be able to not get one little. Don't forget about Jaylen Brown, because he's the guy you're going to trade for Jimmy Butler, and I'm going to be really upset about it.
I'm already, look.
You've already packed his bag for him. You're like, later.
July 4th, the scars.
We're drafting Jayson Tatum. Bye, Jaylen.
Nothing is healed from the July 4th date. All I can't even imagine what we're all going to have to go through. But not only me, but the listeners. When the day comes that Jaylen Brown gets moved,
it's going to be sad.
That's going to be one for the.
We're gonna have to bring in Sam Sheehan and his wonderful co-host from Scorching Shamrocks here on CLNS Radio, and then we're gonna have
Sullivan.
James Sullivan is going to have to help me with a song, a little goodbye to Jaylen Brown song if that happens. I'm actually getting tearful right now. Okay. This broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Radio mobile app as well as clnsradio.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. You can support the show by subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. Give us a rating and a review. We want your feedback. It's important. And a reminder that today's show was brought to you by SeatGeek, Blue Apron, And a new sponsor, a new one, MyBookie. Go get it. They have great deals for all you listeners, but most importantly, you would be supporting our show and the entire CLNS radio network. Thanks to the loyal audience who makes it all worthwhile, and for staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of CLNS Radio, Nick Gelso, and my co-host John Duke. I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtics Stuff Live.
Celtics Stuff Live.